The observation deck floated high above the grand diplomatic hall, wrapped in layers of transparent alloy that bent light like calm water. From the outside, it looked peaceful. From the inside, it was one of the safest places on the royal flagship to be forgotten. That was exactly why Nolan Cross liked it. He stood at his assigned post, hands folded behind his back, posture perfect, expression neutral. A bodyguard was meant to be invisible. Speak only when ordered. React only when necessary. Nolan had trained his whole life to do just that. Unfortunately, his thoughts never learned discipline. Below him, the Grand Hall was alive with movement. Delegations from dozens of star systems filled the circular chamber, each surrounded by faintly glowing translation fields. Gravity shifted subtly to suit different species. The air chemistry changed every few seconds to keep everyone alive and comfortable. At the center of it all stood Princess Arvisa of the Illyrian line. She looked calm. Too calm. Her posture was flawless, her voice steady as she spoke about trade routes and border stability. To an untrained eye, she could have passed for human. Pale skin. Dark hair pulled neatly back. Sharp, focused eyes. But the longer one looked, the clearer the differences became. Her ears were long and elegantly tapered, sweeping back from her head like a quiet statement of ancient authority. Faint lines of bioluminescence pulsed along them, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. Nolan watched her without meaning to. She carried the weight of entire systems like it was nothing. No hesitation. No visible strain. Nolan had only ever seen that kind of control in people who learned very young that the universe did not care about their feelings. He wondered how someone could live like that and still breathe. The deck was quiet. Too quiet. That should have warned him. "I wish I could marry her," Nolan muttered under his breath. The words slipped out easily, barely louder than his breathing. He let out a short, amused breath. "Yeah, right," he added quietly. "A nobody like me. No title. No land. No ancient bloodline. Just a uniform and bad timing." He shook his head. The universe, apparently, was listening. Princess Arvisa stopped speaking. It was not dramatic. No sharp movement. Just a pause. 1 second too long. The translation fields flickered. Murmurs spread through the hall. Nolan frowned and leaned forward slightly. Had there been a system error? Then she turned. Slowly. Deliberately. Her gaze lifted upward, past screens and balconies, through layers of transparent alloy, until her eyes locked directly onto his. Nolan's stomach dropped. She looked at him the way a scientist looked at a solved equation. "I accept," Princess Arvisa said. The hall exploded. Voices overlapped in dozens of languages. Translators lagged behind the chaos. Several alien delegates began shouting at once. An insectoid ambassador clicked so loudly it triggered sound dampeners. Nolan froze. "I accept," she repeated, her voice calm and unshaken. His brain struggled to catch up. He looked behind him. No one else stood on the deck. Just him. The railing. The stars. Below, Arvisa resumed her diplomatic posture as if nothing had happened, continuing her address while the galaxy quietly lost its mind. But she did not look away. Her ears tilted back slightly. Nolan felt something cold settle in his chest. His wrist communicator vibrated sharply. "Cross." Commander Hale's voice snapped through, layered with chaos. "Do not move. Do not speak. And for every mapped star system, do not propose to anyone else." "I didn't." Nolan stopped himself. "Understood." 2 security drones slid silently from the walls, hovering close. Nolan raised his hand slowly. "This is not how I usually flirt," he muttered. The session was suspended. Delegations were escorted out under heavy guard. Ancient laws were invoked, laws Nolan had never heard of but could feel pressing down on the ship like gravity. Royal guards arrived. "You will accompany us," one said. "That sounds expensive," Nolan replied. "Am I allowed to touch things?" The guard did not blink. They led him through corridors he had never patrolled. Areas reserved for royalty and rules older than most stars. The ship itself seemed to soften around them, lights warming, gravity smoothing as if trying to calm him. It didn't work. Nolan was seated in a chamber filled with artifacts embedded in the walls. Symbols glowed softly. A chair formed from the floor. He waited. When Princess Arvisa entered, she came alone. Up close, the bioluminescent lines along her ears were clearer. Alive. She was not distant here. Not untouchable. You spoke aloud, she said gently. I thought the ceiling wasn't listening, Nolan replied. The ceiling always listens, she said. Then, almost amused, it was installed by my great-grandmother. She disliked secrets. He laughed despite himself. I didn't mean to cause trouble, he said carefully. If there's a way to undo this, I'll cooperate. You assume this was unwanted, she replied. Nolan hesitated. I assumed you had plans. I did, she said. Now they are different. She stepped closer. A spoken wish, honestly made and accepted before witnesses, is binding by ancient law, she explained. It cannot be revoked. Only tested. That sounds dangerous, Nolan said. That sounds like hope, she replied. The trial was called. Not combat. Not intelligence. Worth. Nolan was dressed in ceremonial clothing that felt too comfortable to be safe. He was brought into a vast chamber where an ancient construct hovered, formed of light and symbols older than empires. You are unsuitable by rank, the construct declared. By origin. By probability. Fair, Nolan said. Scenes from his past surrounded him. Failures. Quiet moments. Nights staring at stars. State your ambition. To do my job well, Nolan said. And go home alive. Insufficient. Yeah, I get that a lot. Princess Arvisa appeared in the projections. Alone. Surrounded by duty. State your reason for remaining. Nolan swallowed. Because she deserves someone who sees her as a person, not a position. Silence followed. The next test placed him in a simulated attack. Civilians screamed. Arvisa lay injured at the far end. Nolan chose the civilians first. Inefficient, the construct said. She would do the same, Nolan replied. The final test was simple. State your truth. Nolan looked at her. I don't belong here, he said. But when you speak, I listen. And when things go wrong, I want to stand there. Not because I have to. Because I choose to. The construct paused. Statistically unsuitable, it said. Emotionally optimal. The galaxy tested them again. Threats. Fleets. Pressure. When a weapon powered up near the flagship, Nolan stepped forward without thinking, placing himself in front of her. You cannot shield her, a delegate sneered. You are human. I know, Nolan said. It's a habit. The ancient systems awakened. Threat confirms sincerity, the construct declared. The Union stood. In the end, there was no explosion. No war. Just choice. On the observation deck once more, Nolan stood beside Arvisa, no longer looking from afar. I won't pretend this will be easy, she said. I've had worse odds, Nolan replied. You could still walk away. I'm not here because of the law anymore, he said. I'm here because I choose to be. Her ears glowed warmly. The flagship moved on. The galaxy listened. And for once, it approved. The galaxy did not calm down after the Union stood. It pretended to. On the surface, diplomatic messages softened. Fleets repositioned for safety. Councils issued polite statements full of careful words and empty reassurances. But beneath all of it, tension grew heavier with each passing hour. Princess Arvisa knew this. She stood alone in the strategy chamber, staring at a star map filled with glowing markers. Each one represented a faction, a house, or a system watching her next move. Her long ears glowed faintly, the light pulsing slower than usual. That meant concern. Behind her, Nolan Cross waited near the wall, hands behind his back out of habit. He was still officially a bodyguard. Unofficially, he had become something far more dangerous. A variable. You don't have to stand like that, Arvisa said without turning. You're not on duty right now. Nolan shifted awkwardly. I'm not sure what I'm right now. She turned to face him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes searched his face carefully, as if confirming he was still real. That makes two of us, she said. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. The ancient archive intelligence materialized between them, its lattice of light forming precise symbols. Notification, it announced. A formal challenge has been filed. Nolan sighed. Of course it has. House Keeler, the archive continued. They request a final determination. Arvisa closed her eyes briefly. They will not accept the construct's judgment. They won't accept you, Nolan said quietly. Her eyes opened. Sharp. Honest. No, she agreed. They will not. The challenge was ancient. Older than most stars on the map. A final test, not of law, but of endurance. Not combat. Not intelligence. Leadership. The chamber where the trial would take place was not built for comfort. Stone-like alloy walls absorbed sound. Light came from no visible source, casting no shadows. Representatives from dozens of systems filled the outer ring, watching silently. Nolan stood beside Arvisa, painfully aware of how human he looked among them. House Keeler's representative stepped forward. Tall. Angular. Eyes like polished metal. This union destabilizes balance, it said. You invite chaos. Arvisa did not raise her voice. Balance that requires obedience is not balance. It is fear. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The representative turned its gaze to Nolan. And you are nothing. Nolan met its stare. His heart raced, but his voice stayed steady. Then it's impressive how much trouble I seem to cause. Several delegates reacted. Some amused. Some offended. The ancient construct appeared once more. The final trial begins, it declared. The human will be removed. Nolan blinked. Excuse me. Before he could react, the floor beneath him dissolved into light. He fell. Not physically. The world shifted. Nolan stood alone in a quiet place that felt painfully familiar. A human colony outpost. Metal walls. Flickering lights. Emergency sirens echoing faintly in memory. His past. You will lead, the construct's voice echoed. Without title. Without protection. The simulation unfolded fast. Systems failed. Supplies ran low. Panic spread among colonists. Alien refugees arrived seeking help. Security reports warned of incoming threats. Every decision Nolan made carried consequences. He rationed food. He negotiated peace between species who distrusted each other. He chose when to stand firm and when to bend. He failed sometimes. People argued. Some blamed him. Some left. But others stayed. And slowly, the colony stabilized. Not because Nolan was powerful, but because he listened. Back in the trial chamber, the observers watched in silence as time accelerated within the simulation. Years passed in minutes. The construct spoke again. Leadership assessed. The simulation shattered. Nolan found himself back in the chamber, breathing hard. Arvisa stepped toward him immediately. You were gone for 6 subjective years, she said softly. Nolan wiped sweat from his brow. I'm never complaining about paperwork again. House Keeler's representative hissed softly. He led without authority. Yes, Arvisa replied. That is the point. The construct's lattice glowed brighter. Result inconclusive, it declared. The chamber erupted in reaction. Inconclusive. Nolan repeated. That's new. The construct continued. Therefore, leadership must be tested jointly. Silence fell. Arvisa stiffened slightly. Nolan felt it. Joint leadership meant exposure. Vulnerability. Real consequences. The galaxy would watch them fail, or succeed, together. The test came faster than anyone expected. An emergency transmission cut through the chamber, sharp and urgent. A frontier system had gone dark. Communications lost. Defense grid offline. House Keeler moved immediately. We volunteer our fleet, their representative said. Under our command. Arvisa shook her head. No. All eyes turned to her. We will go, she said calmly. Nolan's stomach dropped. We. She looked at him. Together. The flagship jumped within the hour. As they approached the darkened system, Nolan studied the tactical displays. Wreckage drifted in orbit. Civilian stations damaged but not destroyed. This wasn't an invasion, Nolan said. This was a message. Arvisa nodded. Someone wants us to choose. They docked with the main station. Inside, fear clung to the air. Multiple species crowded the corridors, injured, exhausted, angry. Security reports flooded in. Resources limited. Medical overwhelmed. Factional disputes escalating. Nolan took a breath. Okay, he said quietly. We start small. Arvisa watched him carefully. He moved among the people. He listened. He redirected supplies. He placed himself between arguments before they became violence. Not commanding. Helping. Arvisa addressed the leaders. She promised protection. But she did not demand loyalty. Together, they rebuilt order piece by piece. Then the attack came. Not from outside. From within. A sabotage team struck the station's core, attempting to frame another species. Panic exploded. Accusations flew. Old grudges resurfaced. Security requested orders. All eyes turned to Arvisa. She looked at Nolan. He understood immediately. Give me 10 minutes, he said. He went straight into the chaos. Alone. No armor. No title. He stood between armed groups and raised his hands. If you start this, he said loudly, no one wins. Not you. Not them. Not us. Someone shouted. Someone fired into the ceiling. Nolan did not move. You don't trust me, he continued. Fair. But look around. This station is all we have left. If it burns, we burn with it. Silence spread slowly. Security apprehended the saboteurs. The truth came out. The crisis ended without bloodshed. Back on the flagship, the ancient construct reconvened the trial. Joint leadership assessed, it intoned. Result, stable. House Keeler objected loudly. Human influence contaminates royal authority. The construct's light shifted sharply. Correction, it said. Human influence stabilizes it. Shock rippled through the chamber. Arvisa stood tall. Nolan stood beside her, exhausted but steady. The Union stands, the construct declared. Final judgment rendered. Later, when the chamber emptied and the galaxy returned to quiet arguments, Nolan found himself back on the observation deck. The same stars. The same ceiling. Different man. Arvisa joined him, standing close but not touching. You didn't have to do that, she said softly. Yes, Nolan replied. I did. She studied him for a long moment. My people believe power must be inherited, she said. You prove it can be chosen. Nolan smiled tiredly. I still don't want a throne. Good, she said. Neither do I. They stood in silence, watching the stars drift. The galaxy would continue to test them. Politics would never truly end. But something fundamental had changed. For the first time in a very long time, ancient laws had bent, not to force, not to fear, but to honesty. And the universe, once again, listened.